Okay, so there's going to be occasions when you need to scan some of your sketches into Photoshop, and the reason that you're probably going to do that is you want to create a board or two of your development process of the things that you've been working on, and you want to show off also your drawing skill for your portfolio. So it's quite important that you're able to scan your sketches in, and a lot of the time you can actually improve the way the sketches look by shrinking the sketches down and making them smaller. It's a trick that we used to use quite a lot, as if you make your sketches smaller with Photoshop and put more on the page, they actually tighten up the line work a little bit and make them look good. So scanning sketches in is also useful for keeping a record of the digital copy of your work. It's very easy to lose your sketches, and I've lost plenty of work over the years because I hadn't actually scanned in the sketches and the pages went missing. So it's also very handy to do for that. So one of the ways that we want to look at doing it is I've got a couple of examples here of sketches that we're going to sort of put together and make a page from. Something you're going to want to watch out for is the scanner. So if you scan your sketches in, depending on how good the scanner is, depends on how well the page comes through as a digital image. Most of the time it'll be a PDF like this. So I've got two examples of pages here. If I select both of this one here and these two, if you right click on a PDF, you can open it with Photoshop. So we'll go ahead and do that. And what you'll probably notice with this sketch is it's quite yellow. If we zoom in, click on this icon here, this is the zoom tool, and if we zoom in a little bit and have a look at the sketch, now if you hold down spacebar, we can make the zoom tool here go to a hand function. That just means you can move the page around like this in Photoshop. Now if you have a look here, there's a lot of texture on the page that the scanner's picked up, but it's also a little bit yellow, and what we want to do is try and just keep this black colour here. Now if you come down to the little boxes on the left hand side, these little boxes are used for picking colours when you're painting. If we click on one of those, if you put it somewhere, say here, there's a little eyedropper tool that we can use to sample the colours. If I sample on the eye here, it will pick a colour and it will tell me it's black right down here. Now what we really want is the opposite. We want a white colour. If you have a look on here, this one that says new, this is the colour that we're going to use. This is the white that we want. So if I click on here, you can see how it's picked like a yellow colour. It started to move out into the colours rather than just being on the greys. So if I touch this on this page, we can see here that there's plenty of colour in the page. We want to get rid of that, and we want to turn it into something which is white. The reason that we do that is if we cut this out and put this onto a page, it won't look very good, and I'll show you why. You want to create a new page, and you want to make it A3, so choose International Paper and A3, like that. Click OK, and we're going to rotate the image. So we get image rotation, 90 degrees clockwise, and turn it round. So now we have an A3 page. You always want to make sure that your image is 300 pixels per inch. If you go to image size, you can check that. It says resolution is 300 and it's 42 by 29, which is A3. You don't really want to go anything lower than 300 when you're working in Photoshop. It just gives you a lot of pixels to play with, pixels being lots of dots. So if we drag this image, for example, into here, you can see the big difference between the two. Like there's a lot of yellow here and there's a lot of white. This is white as white can be. If we go to the colours and if I choose the background, it is pure white. The white's up in the corner. If I touch this here, it's like a yellow colour. So we want to kind of bring this to look like this, because otherwise when you put your sketches onto the page, they look pretty bad. Now the way that we do that, first things first, is we want to knock the colour out of this image. Now if I delete this in layers, if I just drag that layer to the delete bin, get rid of it, and come back to the hummingbird one. First of all, we want to get rid of the colour. There's a couple of ways we can do it, but the most easy one is to go to adjustments, and then you've got hues and saturations. Now you can desaturate this image in here. There's a setting in there to desaturate completely, but what we'll do is we'll go to hues and saturations first, and in here we can mess about with the image. Now we can add colour to it if we want. You can see how it turns into a bright yellow, or we can desaturate it completely and take the colour out. So first of all we do that and remove all the colour and click OK. Of course as well you can also play around with the hues and saturations here. We can change the actual colour that's in it from like greens to reds and blues and things like that. But ideally we're going to desaturate completely, colour goes away, click OK. If we bring back our colour box and check it, now it's just a kind of grey. It wants to be up here, but it's currently like a bit of a grey colour. So the next thing we do is we go to levels. So we go image adjustments and levels. And in the levels, we can play around with the whites and the blacks of an image. But because we've taken the color out, this makes it easier. So we're going to drag the slider on the right. This is to do with white, and the slider on the left is to do with black. If we drag that one down here, you can see how it darkens the image. If you pull this one here, you can see how it lightens the image, like this. Now, what we'll do, we'll zoom out a little bit. We'll just put that to about here. Image adjustments and levels. And we'll move the slider. This curve here is showing where there's colour on the page, or black on the page. So we're going to stick the white right in the centre of it for now. And I can still see some of the texture of this page. So I'm going to try and bleach it out a little bit more. You can see that it starts to go away now. And I can use the black just to bring back some of the pencil sketch a little bit, but also check to see if there's any sort of black smudges that we haven't got rid of. If this slider had been further this way, you'll start to see the page still, you see. So get rid of that like that, and we'll bring the black to maybe midpoint. We don't want it too heavy, we don't want it too light, we want it somewhere in the middle so the sketch is nice and dark. Okay, bring that to about there. Brilliant. So now if you check it, if you come back to your colours and check the sketch, it should sit nice and tight up in this corner, which is pure white. So we can double check that by resetting the colour box like this, and we can test this colour and it should be exactly the same. So that's good. So now this sketch is pure white. It just means that when we drag this sketch onto the A3 page, apart from the bit at the bottom, which we're going to cut off because that's a black line, you technically shouldn't be able to see any join between the edge of this page and the background. If we turn the background off, this is the edge of the page, you can't see it, it's there, seamless, which makes it much easier now when we want to bring this sketch onto this page and make it sort of fit somewhere nice, maybe something like down the bottom like this. Okay, so we're going to get rid of that. I'm going to delete this, and now that I've proven the point, there's one other thing that you can do. If you come back to these sketches here that are black, once you've got them black, you can actually change the colour of the sketch completely. The way you do that is back in your hues and saturations, image adjustments, hues and saturations, and then if you click colorize here, you can actually change the colour of this sketch. So if we increase the saturation a bit and move this around, we can maybe make the sketch blue or purple or red. So sometimes sketches I always think look really nice when they're kind of like a nice purpley colour like that. So you can actually change the colour of the sketch, but it's got to be black first and it's got to be bleached out. So we'll close this down. Don't need to save that, and we're not going to work on this one because we've just done the same thing. And these are the sketches here that I want to bring into Photoshop and make a little sketchboard from. So the way we look at it is, if I select all of these pages here, and if I right click and open with Photoshop. Now when you open a PDF in Photoshop, it'll ask you first of all if you want to bring it in at 300 pixels per inch. You just say yes, because that's what you want. You want every one of these sketches to be 300. Now these are all sketches that I was working on recently for a design project I was doing, and brought them in because I want to use some of them for this board. So if I just move that down a little bit out the way on here. Now there should be an A3 page which we're going to be working on, which is this one here. So this is going to be the page that I'm going to save the pictures on. So I want to save this image. So a file, save as, I'm going to save it to desktop, and it's going to be a Photoshop document. So you want to make sure it says Photoshop here, which is PSD, and I'm going to call it Sketchboard, like that. Right? So you want to make sure you save your work, because otherwise sometimes Photoshop crashes and you lose everything. Now we're going to turn these rulers off for now because we don't need them. So you can do that by the view and then turn off the rulers. They can go away. Now if I have a little look through some of these sketches, I'm going to pick something that I want to have first as a final sketch. Let's have a look on here. This is okay. This is quite nice. So I want to take this here, this image, and I want to put this in the bottom of my sketch page. I think this is a nice sketch. Now the first things first, if you have a look at this page, what you tend to find is these blacks for the ballpoint pen aren't very dark. So at some point I'm going to want to modify this page to make sure that these blacks are nice and dark and the whites don't, make sure the whites are nice and crisp. So we can do that here on the whole page, or we can do it once we drag it in. So in this instance what I'm going to do is just drag it in first. We take off the rulers on here. If you turn off the rulers for now. Now to do it, there's a couple of ways that we can actually take this out of here. There's a couple of ways that we can sort of take this sketch away. And the first one is to use a marquee tool. So this is called a lasso tool here. There's different ways of using it, but ideally what it's used for is for cutting things out. If I click on the lasso tool, it gives me like a free-form way of cutting out. You see this wavy line? If I was to kind of join this back up again and let go, it's a little dotted line here, and this is basically showing you that you can move something from the page. If you click on the arrow function there, you can now sort of take that out. Okay, so we're going to go back, edit, step backwards, and to deselect this line, you want to go to select, deselect. It gets rid of that dotted line there. So I'm going to click on the lasso tool, and this is going to give me a nice way of drawing around the bit on the page I want to cut out. So I'm not going to take that arrow in. I'm just going to cut this page out here, like that. Now I seem to have missed a piece here, so I can hold down Shift, and I can draw around a bit I want to add in. It adds a little piece in here. If you want to take a piece away, you can hold down ALT, which is Alt, and draw around the bit you want to take out, and you can cut that selection away. Okay, so I'm going to add a bit back in here, like that. Now if I just go to the arrow here, the pointer, I can now just drag this out. See this? And I can drag that onto the board here. Now the way that the scanner seems to have worked that I've been using, it seems to have brought these images in quite well. If we turn off the background, you can see the cutout here. Just to double check though it's good, I can use image adjustments and levels, and I can bring the white up a little bit just to make sure. But most importantly here, I think what we want to do is bring the blacks down, because that's far too greyed out. So where you start to see the little information bar here is where you want to drag this to. See where it just starts to interact. It just makes things nice and dark. Okay, so this is all good. Next thing you want to think about is how big you want this to be on the page. Now you can actually change the size of this, that we'll get into in a minute. But I think what we'll do is we'll bring in a few more sketches from other pages that sort of tell a little bit of a story. So if we come back to these, we'll have a think about parts that we can use. This is a little bit too detailed. This is quite nice. So there's a bit of stuff going on here that I think we can use. So I'm going to use a lasso tool again, and I'm going to cut out the barrow here, which I think is quite good. Maybe with some words in it as well. Just roughly cut that out. Let's have a look like this. So I'm going to drag that, take this one, and drop this onto the sketchboard. Okay, I'm not going to worry about the size of it at the minute, but what I am going to do is maybe fix the darkness of it. So there's a shortcut I can do, which I'll show you later. Image adjustments, levels, and again, just going to pull that black in there so it's nice and dark. So it starts to meet that line. Click OK. That's good. Let's come back here. Think of some more sketches. Let's close that down. What else is quite nice? We'll probably take in maybe this fella here. We'll draw around him because he's quite cool. Sort of take him out. Same again, go back to the pointer, drag him, bring him in, we'll drop him in there. You can see the difference here between him and these sketches. He's quite light and they're quite dark. So we can go back to image, adjustments and levels, and we can bring up that slider just to darken that sketch down a little bit. Bring up the whites a little bit too, just to balance it out. And what else is nice? Let's have a look. That's a bit boring. The page isn't very good, so we'll close that one down. Nope. Let's have a look at these here. That's quite detailed. There's a lot of detail in this one. Maybe there's something in this one that can be used. Okay. Alright, so we're going to take a little bit of the detail out of this here. Let's have a look on this sketch. This is good. So we'll take some parts out of this. I think this bit of handle work is nice here. So we're going to take this bit, we'll take this whole piece, I think, off the top. But we'll just ignore maybe the rest of it at the bottom. We'll put this at the top of the page. Grab that, drag that out of there. We'll drop this in. And again, we'll lighten that up. So we just drag that down to make the sketches nice and dark. Add a little bit more light in there so we don't bleach it out too much. And we'll stick that at the top. So we've got a few things to work with on the page. I think we'll grab one more thing and then we'll work with it. Maybe another side detail from something else. We've grabbed those already. Maybe we'll take something like maybe something like this at the top here. So we'll take these details. These are quite nice. So we'll take a little bit of detail out of here. We'll drag that. And we'll take this as well, even though it's not quite from this sketch. And I'll drag this out. We'll stick that in as well. We'll go back to levels. We'll just darken that down. That looks good. Now what you can see at the top of here, this is basically dragged in the top of the page as well. This little line at the top has dragged it in from when we've copied it over. But that's not a problem. Another thing you can also do when you're cutting things out is if you select something to cut, like this, and then you copy and paste it. If you look in layers here, there's only one layer at the minute. But if I go image, let's have a look, edit, copy, and then edit and then paste, it will take that bit we've cut and it creates it as a new layer like this, you see. So now we've got a new layer here. And you can always copy layers over by holding down Alt ALT. So I can copy that and then copy that and then copy that just by holding down Alt and moving the mouse. Okay. So we'll close this down. We don't need it anymore. And this is our Photoshop page that we're going to work on here. Now the way that layers work that we've talked about before, this is the bottom layer at the minute. This is the first one that we brought in. But all the other layers are sitting on top of this sketch. So if we have auto select on, which means whichever one I click on will move, this is currently sitting on top of that sketch we had first. If we grab the bottom layer and drag that up like this, that will sit on top of this. So all these layers, depending on where you put them, they're like layers of a cake. They're just the top ones, the top of the layer palette just means it's a sketch that's on the top here. Okay. Now what we'll do is we'll think about how we can set the composition of this page out a little bit. I think at the top of here we'll put a little bit of a story at the top of this page. Now sketches always look nice when you shrink them down, and what we want to do is also get rid of that line at the top, so we can use the marquee tool and I can select that. I'll go edit, cut and take that away. And I can now also start to shrink this sketch. If I do edit, transform, and then free transform, which is here, what you can now do is change the way that you interact with the sketch. We can tip the sketch, we can shrink the sketch, or we can make it bigger. If you hold down shift, it will constrain the proportions of the sketch, and we can actually shrink the sketch down a little bit like this. So I'm going to make the sketch a little bit smaller. I'll put that here. That maybe to about here. If you hit enter, that will change it permanently. I'm going to grab this sketch here and I'm going to go edit, free transform. I'm going to straighten the sketch up a little bit, hold down shift, and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller like this. And what I'm trying to do is think about how I can tell a bit of a story on the page here that sort of explains the details of it. Hit enter, that's good. And now if we move this one up, move this sketch to here. So we go edit, free transform, we'll make it a little bit smaller so it fits in. Like that. So that's nice at the bottom. And then this one here can be a little bit of details. So if we go edit, free transform again, hold down shift to make it a little bit smaller. Like that. We can maybe put this somewhere in the middle, about here, which would be quite nice. like that, hit enter, and then this sketch, we can bring this fella down and we can turn him round. So if we go to edit, free transform, and we can go flip horizontal, we can spin him, like that. Let's get rid of that line that's on top of this page, which is easy to do. So edit and then cut, that'll go away. Then we can delete this a little bit on this side here, I think. Get rid of that. Good, right. So the composition of this isn't particularly good, but what I'm doing is taking some of the better sketches and putting them onto one page that I can then start to tell a little bit of a story with. So what we can now do is go back to another page where we have some arrows. There's no arrows on there. There's a couple of arrows in there. We need to kind of grab one that's got some arrows. So I'm going to grab this here. Grab that. Drag that back over to this board. I'm going to go Control L so I can bring up the levels, make sure it's nice and dark. And maybe what I can do is go Control T, which is free transform, and straighten this up. Change the size of it a little bit. Put an arrow in there. Arrows are great because they just create a little bit of narrative on the page. You're sort of cheating a little bit to some degree, you know, when you're trying to sort of make it look a bit more interesting. But yeah, they always add a lot of detail, so it's nice. Always put arrows on your sketches. So we'll drag that, and we're going to stick this one in here, like this, and it needs to be turned around. So go edit, transform, flip horizontal, and then we can go edit, free transform, and we can just tweak that slightly like this. Maybe like that. And then do your levels again. Control and L. Bring up the levels in a shortcut. Okay, so we'll just move things around a little bit just to see how they settle on the page. Now if you wanted to make it a little bit interesting and change the colours like we talked about before, what you could do is you could blend a few things together. We could actually put another sketch in there because there's a gap missing there. It's missing something really. Let's have a look what we can steal. Maybe this is interesting. We can stick a bit of this in here. I mean, normally when you're doing this, you'd probably spend a fair bit of time. You wouldn't do this in 20 minutes. You'd probably spend an hour or so to make sure this is really nice. I'm just trying to do this very, very quickly on camera. So bring in your levels, darken that down. We'll just move these around a little bit. If things are jumping about too much like that and it's locking to stuff, what you can do is turn off snap. Turn off snap like that, and things are should be a little bit freer. Extras, snap to, yeah, that's good. Right, all good. If you want to make it a little bit more interesting, you can put some colours on the page. So if we were to take these sketches in the middle here and go to Image, Adjustments, Hue and Saturation, and then Colorize, we can now change that to maybe a blue or purple kind of look. It just starts to break up the page a little bit. So we can make that purple. We can maybe take this sketch here and we can go Image, Adjustments, Hues and Saturations, and we can maybe colorize those two and make them a little bit purple as well, like that. So it sort of joins these two together, and maybe the arrows we could do as a red. Let's have a look. We can do them as a red, might be nice. Something like that. We can maybe add a bit more red into it. There. And we'll do the same one with the bottom one here. Colorize a bit more, a bit of red. And maybe, yeah, maybe we'll do this as a red as well. Just see what it looks like. A lot of this is just playing around and messing about really until you really find something you think looks nice. I don't particularly think this looks amazing, but it will do for now. Okay, so color-wise, I'm trying to break up the page a little bit. You could just leave it as it is. What you want to do is save that to make sure that nothing happens to the sketch work. That's just a very easy way of bringing your sketches in. If we get down here and we go to full screen, if you press F a couple of times, it'll take you to full screen. So yeah, I don't think it looks too bad. I think what we could do is maybe a logo in the corner, or maybe your name, something to that degree. If you press V, we're going to go back to the pointer, so we can now move things around a little bit. And if you have a look in here, and let's have a look here. Yeah, this looks quite nice. It sort of ties the whole lot together. Shrinking your sketches down will help your sketches look a lot tighter, especially when you print them out onto an A3 page. If they can draw them to a fairly nice size and then make them smaller, it'll always look a bit better. So that's it. That's a very quick tutorial in how to use Photoshop to make a sketchboard and how to shrink your sketches and use Free Transform and the cutting tool. Okay, so have a go at that, give it a bash and see how you get on. Cheers.